Hi there. It's April the 19th, and we're continuing our journey through Luke's Gospel. We're in chapter 19, we're reading from verses 1 to 27. In the first part of this chapter, we read the story of Jesus coming to Jericho, and as he's going through Jericho, there's a man there who wants to see him. This man's name is Zacchaeus, and Zacchaeus is a very short man, and in order to be able to see Jesus, he goes up into a tree. Now, there's another reason he goes up into a tree. This man is a tax collector. He's hated, he's almost mafioso, he's part of a local protection racket, and he is taking in more money than is just. And so he hides. He wants to see Jesus because Jesus is well known, but he hides up in the sycamore tree. Probably actually not sycamore as such, but more like a fig tree. The word has been confused, but it's a fig tree. So he's hiding in the fig tree. And Jesus comes by and stops and says, "Zacchaeus, come down." Jesus knows exactly who he is. He knows exactly where he's at. And what's more, Jesus values him. Jesus wants, and he shows he values him by saying he wants to come and receive his hospitality. There wouldn't be many people who would want to eat at the house of a tax collector, but Jesus specifically says he wants to go there. This actually provokes a general murmuring and a general complaint that Jesus is wanting to go to the house of sinners. Jesus goes there, and in the process of going there, something in Zacchaeus' heart is touched, and he turns around and he comes back to God and he says, if I have defrauded anybody, I'm going to give it back again, and I'm going to restore whatever I have taken from others. And Jesus says, this salvation, rescue, has come today to this house. It's a wonderful picture of someone who's, unlike the rich ruler we saw earlier, this man's wealth has not got hold of his heart so much that he can't let go of it in order to come home to God. And then Jesus continues with a financial theme, in a sense, with a story that is the parable we call traditionally the parable of the talents. But it's actually more than that. They're going towards Jerusalem. Everyone's imagining that Jesus is going to quickly deliver the kingdom to God, that he's going to overthrow the Romans. But Jesus kind of tells a story that involves waiting and taking time and patience. And he says that a king who was actually not wanted by many of the people gives out to 10 of his servants 10 talents each. And then he hears that they don't want to have this king ruling over them, but the king receives his kingship and he comes back. Now, clearly the king in this picture is Jesus, and Jesus is coming. He's looking for fruitfulness from the people, and the people are murmuring against him and rejecting him. And there are those who have made good use of what Jesus has given to them. We might want to include someone like Zacchaeus in that. Even though he seems to be unrighteous, he's actually been very generous with what he has. And then there's another who says, I've earned 5 times what you gave me, and he receives a blessing. But then there's the last one, the last slave that is asked about his return, says, well, actually, I just kept what I had and I wrapped it up in a cloth and I hid it in the ground because I was afraid. Fear was in his heart, and the fear meant that he was unfruitful. And there's a clear picture here that Jesus is pointing to those who, because of their fear of God, because they're afraid of retribution, they don't sow that seed. They're not acting with their hearts. They're living in fear of God in case of what he does. But actually, Jesus says that at the end of the day, it's going to be worse for that kind of person. If they're just doing things out of keeping favour with God, then they're going to suffer loss at the end of the day. As we look at this story, as we look at these two stories, wouldn't we rather be like Zacchaeus? Wouldn't we rather be like him who said, I just want to be generous, I want to restore, I want to come home, rather than this servant who keeps hold of what he has out of fear, trying to do the right thing, small-hearted, embittered. And so let's be like Zacchaeus today. Let's be those who see the kingdom of God coming through our generosity, through restoration of the things to others that God has promised. Have a very good April the 18th.